the home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads.
What's that? What? Did you hear that? I vaguely remember hearing something about Lincoln Riley. The reason why he left is he couldn't recruit to Oklahoma from other states. Well, it looks like Linky Boy was wrong again. Let's talk about it. Well. How's it going out there today, boys and girls in the sporting land? I'm JPC. I'm also known as the OCF. That is the outlaw of college football. And I'm back up in the saddle again, trying to do a podcast every other day at least for now. I'm going to get back to try to do one once a day. Y'all can also check me out on Facebook under Jesse Paul Clark if you want to holler at me on there. It's easy to get in touch with me there, as well as on Twitter at OCF Productions. Now, getting right to it. Looks like some narratives are being shot to hell. I saw today, I hate to keep harping on this, but the USC fans keep yammering on about how the location that Lincoln has now is a lot better than it was in Oklahoma, because you couldn't get players out there to Oklahoma because it's in the middle of nowhere, right? Let me tell y'all something, man. Y'all need to do your college football history before you start running your mouth about these kind of things. Because if you look back at college football history, starting with Bud Wilkinson, even before that Bernie guy, I can't remember his last name, it escapes me right now, but Bud Wilkinson, Chuck Fairbanks, Barry Switzer, Bob Stoops, all won national championships and contended for national championships on a regularity. And it's been going on for 70 or 80 years. So why would it stop now all of a sudden because Lincoln Riley said so? Really? Is he Stone Cold Steve Austin? I mean, is his words really carry that kind of weight? Because I don't think so. See, Lincoln and a lot of people that are trying to prop him up out there are trying to say that because of his location, because he's in California now, and that's one of the leading states for recruits, that means that Lincoln's recruiting is going to be a lot easier because he couldn't get nobody to Oklahoma. You can't get them kind of players to Oklahoma, right? You can't get players from the West Coast or the East Coast to Oklahoma. Maybe some from Texas, but not to little old Norman. They've only won 8 national championships, right? So they're like a run-of-the-mill program, really. And you can't get defensive players to Oklahoma, says Lincoln. Really, Lincoln? They've been getting defensive players to Oklahoma since I can remember as a football fan. Brian Bosworth, that ring a bell? And a lot of people are like, well, that was back then, up now. Really? Because Bob Stoops, in his early part of his tenure, was known for defense. Now, in the later part, when he brought his brother back in and had some nepotism going on, not so much. But that first national championship, for those that say that, they won 13-2 over Florida State. Doesn't sound like an offensive juggernaut to me. If you can hold Florida State to 2 points, back then that was pretty damn good. Florida State was an offensive juggernaut at times. But let's just look at this list of these players. There's only one player on here that's from the state of Oklahoma, by the way. Just yesterday, Jasiah Wagoner, 4-star cornerback. 4-star. Got my little list here. It's like Chris Jericho. Got the list started up here. Gonna put y'all on the list here. 4-star cornerback from Spanaway Lake, Washington. That's a long ways from Oklahoma. 4-star too, not just a run-of-the-mill defensive player. That Lincoln seems to continually have issues getting. I mean, if USC, if the Skittle shitters couldn't get him, then why couldn't Oregon or Washington? These are teams that have contended for national championships and won national championships. Washington won a national championship back in the 1990s. So it can be done. Hell, if the state of Washington's not that great with talent and stuff, then why was USC up there recruiting this guy? Why did they steal one of their former coaches from there, Mr. Steve Sarkisian? The narrative's just not fitting here. And then 2 or 3 days before that, they got a Heath Ozaeta from Seattle, Washington. Now, he is a legacy. His parents, I think, went to Oklahoma, and they're big Oklahoma fans, so you can excuse that away. But how can you excuse letting Oklahoma come all the way out there to the West Coast and taking a 4-star cornerback from underneath your nose to little old Norman? You know, the place that nobody really wants to go, right? Because they've only won 8 national championships. Then, going down the list from this year, you got Jackson Arnold, who's a 5-star quarterback. He can't recruit the offense, though, right? Because Brent Venables is a defensive guy. Ain't no great quarterback going to want to play there, right? Whoops. Oopsie. 5-star quarterback from Denton, Texas. Jackson Arnold. Then, to follow that up, 4-star running back from Denton, Texas as well, Caleb Hicks. Keon Brown, wide receiver from the backyard of Florida State in Tallahassee, comes all the way to little old Norman. But they can't recruit outside the state of Oklahoma or Texas, can they? They may be able to get some from Texas, but they'll never be able to get none from the West Coast or the East Coast, right? And then you got Joshua Bates from Durango, Colorado, out in the middle of the swinging up the northeast side of the East Coast. What do we have here? Caleb Spencer, a safety from Collin Heights, Virginia. And you mean to tell me that little old Norman, Oklahoma, brought this guy all the way from Virginia and Virginia Tech and West Virginia and Ohio State and Michigan and Wisconsin and Penn State and all those teams? You mean they couldn't persuade this guy to stay closer to home, but he went to Norman, Oklahoma, where nobody can recruit to, according to Lincoln Riley? And then the last one, Cade McIntyre, an athlete from Fremont, Nebraska, in the backyard of one of their oldest rivals, Nebraska. Another impressive get. So the narrative here looks like an agenda of a lot of people out there, or people getting caught up and getting fooled up into believing the hype that is Lincoln Riley. And the fact that it ain't even Lincoln Riley that the problem is. The problem is people think that Oklahoma can't be recruited to because they're in the middle of supposedly nowhere. They're not really that far from Dallas, Texas, by the way. But the whole state line and the location, all that shit, it ain't going to matter if Lincoln can't develop the talent. Sure enough, he was an innovative offensive mind, but he didn't even have an average defense. You can get away with not having a shutdown defense these days with the kind of offenses you got. But you've got to have a modicum of a defense, and you've got to be able to develop these players. And it's been come out and said by a lot of these Oklahoma players and a lot of NFL people that these Oklahoma players last 2 or 3 years that have come into the NFL weren't developed properly. They had all the tools and all the best, some of the greatest talent in the world. They just weren't recruited properly. And now if they're in the NFL, they're excelling. You know, the same players that Lincoln said he couldn't win with, these NFL teams are saying they can win with them. So, future reference, before you buy into the whole hype thing and believe everything you hear, just take a look. Just take a look at the locations of these players. They're on the West Coast, the East Coast, the middle of the United States, the Southeast, even in their stomping grounds of Oklahoma and Texas. The variety's there. You can recruit to Oklahoma. And while it might make it easier for someone like Lincoln because he's just not that good at recruiting, broad picture, having a wholesome, complete program, that doesn't mean that no one else can recruit there, because it's been recruited to for 70 or 80 years. And that's the moral of the story today. Is just do your research. And with that, I'm going to get off of here. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams. Oh, and if you don't mind, look down underneath here. Like, share, download option. Right next to that is the heart thanks button. Click that. Throw a few dollars in the coffers. And get us off that YouTube teat, hopefully. And now, class is officially dismissed.